Hi, and welcome to another episode of Just Scare Us Already, where we review new and old films and give you our opinion about them. If you like what you hear, please click on subscribe, like us, and follow us. So I'm here today with my co host Cheyenne.
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about two new films. As we enter the month of September, moviegoers were given two new entries in the horror movie genre. First, we have The Front Room, starring television and R&B singer actress Brandy Norwood, and the remake of the 2022 Denmark Netherlands film Speak No Evil, starring James McAvoy and Mackenzie Davis. So, as we gear up for Halloween, did these two new entries succeed in bringing the frights, or do we continue to wait for a film to just scare us already? So, Cheyenne, tell us a little bit about The Front Room.
So, The Front Room was directed by Max and Sam Eggers, written by Susan Hill, Max Eggers, and Sam Eggers, and like you said, starring Brandy Norwood, Andrew Burnap, and Catherine Hunter. In order to make do, financially struggling and very pregnant Belinda and her lawyer husband Norman agree to move in his stepmother in exchange for a large sum of money. Belinda quickly learns just how diabolical and crazy this new guest is as she tries to sink her claws into their newborn daughter. This movie is currently sitting at a 49% critic score and a 39% audience score. And let me just say, first off the bat, I feel these tomato scores are very generous. When looking at this movie as a horror mystery thriller, which is what it's labeled as, I would give it maybe a 10% at best. So that gives you a clear idea of my opinion of this movie already. What did you think?
Totally agree. Totally agree. And sadly, my percentage would probably be even lower because this film, The Front Room, is not, and I repeat, not a horror film. It's not a
Mm-mm.
thriller or a mystery. This film had absolutely no scares, no suspense, and matter of factly, no plot. I mean, it came
Yes.
across more like a comedy than anything.
Yeah, I completely agree. This was leaning way into the comedy than horror, even though it wasn't even listed as comedy. Like, I would forgive it if it was a horror comedy. I would say, okay, they leaned a little bit too much in the comedy aspect of it, like some
Hmm.
movies we've seen in the past.
Hmm.
But this wasn't even listed as comedy. I don't know where they thought they were going, but as a comedy, Catherine steals the show. She is hilarious, off the rocker. She's the epitome of a nightmare mother in law. But
Hmm.
I do agree, this had no plot line. It felt like it had a concept of, ooh, crazy religious white lady, and then just descended into like monotony the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely. I mean, overall, the film was slow. And like you said, the story felt undeveloped. It's definitely not worth the dragged out journey to watch this film. I believe, somebody said, hey, what would happen if a black and white couple got married and the mother-in-law is like a super racist old chick and they had to move her into their house? What would happen? I think that's as far as the thought process got. And then when they started
Yeah.
developing the movie, they didn't really know what to do with it, in my opinion, to even remotely make it a horror movie.
No, I think A24, and I know A24 typically keeps themselves pretty hands off of any of the productions that they do, which I think is very cool. But I don't know if maybe when they got picked by A24 or if someone in A24 had a say, but it felt like the throw in of this religious power that this grandmother had, which was very reminiscent of Hereditary.
Hmm.
It felt like that was thrown in because it was an A24 movie. It didn't feel like it belonged in this movie at all.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, like it just felt like they didn't know what to do with it.
Agreed. They definitely kind of took liberties with, like you said, Hereditary and Rosemary's Baby, where you had this group of religious people who you really don't know who they are, and all of a sudden they pop up at the house, but then they did nothing with that. They
Yes.
they didn't really do a whole lot with a lot of the scenes. The sleepwalking and the grandmother with her talking in tongues and stuff like that. A lot of it just kind of got presented and then left on the table, and we were supposed to just take it at face value. Oh, okay, you know.
Yeah. Like I agree with you. So many things were introduced in the movie and just sort of dropped out of nowhere and didn't feel like any of it was planned.
Hmm.
Like this would have been a fine, I guess, like maybe an episode of something or a short film or just not even made. Like it just felt like it was, I don't know how to explain it. It just felt very empty.
Yep.
But again,
Yep.
I mean, as a comedy horror, it was, and I wouldn't say horror, but as a comedy drama, maybe it would have worked. Um, it has a lot of funny moments in it of both Brandy and Catherine, and
Hmm.
I enjoyed parts of it. Like there are parts where I don't laugh at a lot of movies. I don't laugh at comedies that often. I don't laugh at even comedy horrors. But this one, I was laughing at a few scenes, and so it worked in aspects of it, but definitely
Yeah.
as a horror, no. The ending I thought was way too on the nose, and they reveal. Not going to give any spoilers, but the way that they reveal the ending, I thought was so dumb. It felt so just like, here, you guys are too dumb to figure it out.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with what you said earlier. Catherine Hunter, who plays the role of the elderly mother-in-law Solange, she stole the show. She was hilarious, and I laughed too. And I know when it comes to horror movies, you want some levity. You want to take a break from the tension. You want to get audience to drop their guard so you can throw something at
Yeah.
them later on. So you may have a funny joke or funny scene or something like that within the movie, but she was funny throughout. I mean, her character was just laughable, and she played it as a very laughable character. And for me, that made the movie worth watching, just to watch her,
Yeah.
but not going in knowing she was going to be this funny character. It was hugely disappointing. To categorize this film as a horror film is truly misleading. The film played more
Hmm.
like a Lifetime film at best. Um,
Yes, definitely.
yeah, and then as a story about the endless battle between daughter-in-laws and versus mother-in-laws, it works. But other than that aspect, the front room fails to make this story work as anything else. And I believe the directors, Max and Sam Eggers, they failed to bring any tension or suspense to the story. And the ending, like you said, was lackluster at best.
Yeah, I hope that they go into doing comedies. Maybe I think that they'll do really good in that. Um, even like drama comedies or dark comedies would be fine. I think they would do really, really good at dark comedies. I just don't think this one was at least marketed the way it should have been.
Hmm.
I think if this one was marketed more like Blackish, or what is it? Dale and Tuck versus Evil, Tuck and Dale versus Evil. If it was marketed more as a dark comedy, I could forgive it, and I would have gone into it with a very different mindset than I did go into it,
Hmm.
and probably would have been more forgiving.
Yeah, yeah.
So, as a horror movie, though, and as a did it scare us, I'm definitely giving this movie a big thumbs down. It was a meh. I would say if you like dark comedies, watch it, catch it on streaming, but don't go through this thinking it's going to be a horror movie, a mystery, or thriller.
Totally agree. I give it a thumbs down, Kitty, because yeah, it just did not live up to its promise as even remotely being a thriller or a suspense film. It's definitely not a horror film, and um, if you don't want to waste your time or your money, wait till it's on some streaming channel or your local regular network station.
Yes.
And one thing I did want to add, just out of curiosity, because the directors were Sam and Max Eggers, and oddly enough, the director of the new Nosferatu movie that's coming out, his name is Robert Eggers. I wonder if he's in
Oh,
relation.
I do wonder. Let's see, Robert Eggers. I feel like I've seen Robert Eggers before, though.
Yeah, it looks like
No, yeah, they are brothers.
they are brothers. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, front room directors on sharing bro Robert Eggers' love for horror is
Oh,
one of the articles.
okay. Yeah,
Well, I would say go to dark comedy, you guys.
because Robert Eggers, he directed The Witch, the
That's what I thought.
Lighthouse, and The Northman, which are all A24 productions.
Yes, and I like The Norseman, and I like Lighthouse a little bit.
Yeah, I
I
did.
have my feelings towards the witch. Oh
Yeah, I did not care.
no, that makes me so nervous. I'm really excited for Nosferatu. Well, other Eggers brothers go for dark comedy. In my opinion, you would do very great in that.
All right, so let's talk about our next film, which is Speak No Evil.
Speak No Evil is written and directed by James Watkins, with credits to the writers of the original Danish Norwegian film, written by Christian and Mads Taftdrop. This one is starring James McAvoy, Mackenzie Davis, Scott McNary, and Aisling Frankiosi. It follows a timid and detached family when they are invited to spend a whole weekend in a lonely home in the countryside with a fun loving and charming family they met on holiday. But as the weekend progresses, they realize that a dark side lies within the family who invited them. The movie is sitting at a perfect 85% in both critic and audience score. So, what did you think of this movie?
Well, when it comes to remakes, and we'll probably touch on more about U.S. foreign horror films later. But as a remake, I actually liked this film, Speak No Evil, and I thought it worked as a remake of the original foreign film. Although the climax and the conclusion are totally different than the original, I felt they kept enough of the original storyline to constitute as a true remake. What did you think?
I agree. I genuinely really enjoyed this film. I went into it. I had seen the original a few years ago, about the time when it came out in 2022, and I was genuinely confused on why they were remaking it because the original is majority in English.
Hmm.
And so I was very like, why would you do this other than to get like more audience's eyes on it? However, quickly it was clear in the movie that they wanted to explore a very different route. And I was genuinely um, excited and impressed with the way that they went because obviously seeing it from a Danish, Norwegian mindset. I don't know if that those countries have more timid people and more quiet people, but that movie was much more of that. It was much more of a timid family who really did not want to speak out against the family that had invited them. Versus this one is obviously American and British or Irish, and the American family is relatively outspoken and much more active in this movie, and I thought that that worked really well for the audience it was going for, as well as the storyline and how they wanted to do the storyline. Um, what they kept, I thought, really worked. There was a lot of parts in the movie that were the same as the original,
Hmm.
and quintessential scenes that I thought were done well in both. And I thought this one had a much faster pace than the original. So I liked it a lot, personally.
Okay. Well,
I thought the beginning of the movie was pretty
mhm. Go ahead. Go
close.
ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say I thought the beginning of the movie was pretty close scene by scene of the original, but once the families are together, it's pretty clear that this movie is taking more of a look at the American family having their own struggles and their own internal issues
Mhm.
that are then um, exasperated by this new family, this new fun loving and very openly in love family that just kind of brings a whole new psychological twist to them.
Mhm. Yeah, I would disagree with you kind of on the point of the pace of the film. Having watched the
Okay.
original and knowing the plot of the film, to me, the earlier scenes dragged. Um, and it may have just been me wanting to hurry up and get to, what are they going to do with the ending? Is it going to be the same type of ending
Uh-huh.
or is it going to be a different ending? So for me, it did drag a bit, but I agree that they they gave the visiting family more character than the original. The original, they kind of were lost in the script, so to speak. It was
Yeah.
more about the husbands. It was very little about the wives and the kids, where this version focused more on the family dynamic and that they weren't the perfect family and that they were having their own issues. So that kind of came into play as well as far as, what what was happening in their own lives kind of helped construct this situation that they were in.
Yeah.
But I do say that, as I said earlier, unlike the original film, the climax and the conclusion were totally different. And to me, the remake felt like it was using the typical cliche-ish horror film, victims fight back, and it panders to the
Mm-hmm.
need for a happy ending. Seems like American moviegoers aren't too crazy about sad or unhappy endings. So I think a lot of times movie makers tend to say, "Well, we can't end it that way. Audiences aren't going to like that. So we gotta make it feel good," you know.
Which is such a shame because I think that the original, I don't think the original ending was perfect. I definitely don't think that.
Mhm.
But I did think that this one, so the original, without giving any spoilers, I felt like didn't ramp up until the last maybe 10-15 minutes of the movie.
Mhm.
That's really when it kind of went somewhere.
Mhm.
This one I felt like was pretty much early on, maybe halfway through the movie or a little bit less than halfway. It was already ramping up and it was already kind of showcasing what was the big twist and what was going on. And like you said, the American family was much more active in this one and fighting back. And so I appreciate that, but I will say I don't love, and we talked about this in one of our last videos, but I don't love a happy ending all the time in horror movies. But I have seen that a lot, which we'll talk about in our video about American remakes of foreign movies. But they really, like you said, they really do love a happy ending. They love victim fighting back, and I don't think it always works. In this case, I'll say that I think it kind of worked because the whole point of this movie was that the father is very timid, and the parents are just kind of going along and are very detached from each other. And at the end, they have to really pull together
Mhm.
in order to, get out of the situation that they're in. And so I thought that that worked really well. And I could accept the ending that they chose to go with this movie because of that character growth that was needed between the two characters versus the original. It felt like it didn't go anywhere with that.
Mhm. Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I don't like this film because of its ending. I
Hmm.
understand why they went that route, and it, like you said, it works for this film as well as the original ending. The For me, when I watched the original Speak No Evil, I literally sat there with my in my lap for
Yes,
about 10 minutes after the credits.
it was so
That's
shocking.
how messed up that ending was. And I've had other cases like that, with the possession of Hannah Grace or
Hmm.
um, funny games,
Oh, such
films
a good movie.
where there's no happy ending. It's
Yeah, even Hereditary. I'll give it that one.
yeah, it just kind of
I was
leaves you
shocked.
like, wow, that's it. The Strangers, the original The Strangers. Same thing,
Hmm.
and I know The Strangers kind of plays like funny games. It's kind of like they took that concept and created The Strangers. Um,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's the same thing where you're just kind of like, what just happened? You're kind of
Yeah.
shocked and dumbfounded because you're like, wait a minute. So no one
And I was kind of hoping they'd
comes to
go
the
that route.
rescue.
I was really hoping that they would go that route with one other character that they introduced in the movie.
Hmm.
Um, I was kind of hoping there would be a twist at the end, but again, I understand what they were going for. They were going for a very different
Right.
um, ending aspect of the original, and maybe they wanted to see, oh, what would it be like if there was a very different ending than the original.
Yeah.
But I will say, Blumhouse did a good job with this one. Blumhouse picked a good one.
Yeah, they finally produced one that doesn't make them look so bad. But I will say that the climax and the conclusion of this remake was probably what everyone who watched the original was feeling when they watched the
Yes.
original. This is what they wanted the original to do, and it didn't happen. So
Hmm.
I think they were like, "Hey, why don't we just take everything that everybody wanted and make our climax and our."
Exactly. I feel like James Watkins watched the original and said, "Ugh, if this was an American family, that would not happen at all." So I think that there was definitely that aspect of, everything that someone was yelling at the screen to do,
Mhm.
they decided to go that route. There was a lot of frustrating moments in this movie, though, obviously. It's a horror movie. There has to be frustrating moments. But there were some parts of it where I just did not understand the choices that these parents were making.
Yeah, yeah, there were some scenes, and like you said, when it comes to horror movies, it kind of helps the development of the story. So sometimes characters have to make dumb decisions, and they definitely
Hmm.
do in this film. But I will say that James McAvoy did a great job in the role of the
Hmm.
psychotic Patty. Um, but the character reminded me a lot of many of the alter personalities that he had in the film Split and Glass. Where he would switch from one
Yeah.
character to another. It reminded me a lot of him doing those characters, the creepiness and the psychotic
Yeah.
eyes and the creepy smiles. He does a good job at it.
He did a great job. And I read an article, I don't know how true it is, but he took inspiration from the Andrew Tate toxic masculinity
Mm,
mindset.
okay.
And you can definitely see it in this. I thought he did a good job being charming when he needed to be charming and being scary when he needed to be scary. I thought that Ashling also did a really good job. She was a very charming wife and very sympathetic character despite her position in the movie.
Hmm.
I just thought that everyone did a really good job. I was a little confused with Mackenzie Davis and Scott McNairy. They sometimes seem to go back and forth between which one was timid and which one was more outspoken,
Hmm.
which I mean was fine. It was just, I don't know. Personally, I was like, well, typically, like, I don't know. The husband didn't always seem so timid around his wife and around the family, but then would make all these like like choices that would be a real scaredy cat.
Well,
Um,
yeah, he was brave. He was uh, kind of tough guy or whatever with the wife and the daughter. But then when it came to
mhm,
the dealing with Patty, the James McAvoy character, then he became this timid
mhm.
kind of, I don't want to rock the boat. Sure, let's do whatever kind of thing,
Yeah.
And she, the wife um, of the husband, I can't think of her name, but Mackenzie, she
Yeah.
she seemed to be the stronger one of the two, but she didn't want to overstep her boundaries, I guess. So she didn't like
Uh-huh.
try to embarrass him in front of everybody. But you could tell near the end of the movie, she was starting to get fed up with it and didn't care if she was embarrassing him because she was done.
Yeah, and I guess I just kind of wish he had been more timid throughout the whole thing, like even with his wife and daughter, had been the one a bit more complacent and that would have kind of given Patty more of something to pull at, being like, oh, really making him feel like he was a strong masculine man,
Hmm.
to kind of make it more clear why he would be so willing to do whatever Patty said, which there was a little bit of that. I just kind of wish that he had been the one that was a bit more complacent between his wife and his daughter.
Hmm.
But that's a small thing, very small thing. Overall, thought the movie was great. I genuinely loved it. I would give it a thumbs up. It sadly did not scare me, but this movie wasn't really, I don't think, made to be scary,
Hmm.
as more of thrilling and suspense. I did get tense. I did get suspenseful towards the end during the climax part because it was so different from the original. I really didn't know which way it was going to go. More towards the original ending or more of a happier American ending. So I was tense during that part, I'll admit, but it did not scare me. So I would give it a big thumbs up though. Go check it out in theaters.
Yeah, for me, and this is just my own personal opinion about a lot of editing for previews. I think
Oh,
a lot of times they spoil a movie because, to be honest,
yes.
just from the previews, I could tell it was going to be a different ending. The previews gave away a lot, which was unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when they're editing a film for previews, they need to be more conscious of exactly what we're giving away. I mean, I'm sure the director and the producer saw the previews and the trailers and signed off on them, but I think it gave away a lot.
It
But
did.
overall, the film works as a decent thriller suspense film. I think McAvoy carried the film, so it made it entertaining throughout. And it addressed the fact that some people can be a little too accommodating and polite, and sometimes you have to follow your gut. I
Yeah.
liked Speak No Evil, and I give it a thumbs up, Kitty. I enjoyed it.
Yay! I will say, just as a note, yeah, I totally agree with the trailer thing. Um, Getting a little bit off topic, but just a touch. Did you see the trailer for the second trailer for Smile 2?
Yes, I did.
The longer trailer?
Yeah,
It gives the whole movie away, and I was so mad, genuinely mad, sitting in the theater for Speak No Evil, seeing that trailer,
yeah.
because now I feel like I know the entirety of the movie, and I agree. And so, if any producers, editors, whatever are out there, marketers, please stop doing that. Just stop giving away the whole movie. The trailer one for Smile 2 was fine. The trailer
Hmm.
one for Speak No Evil was fine. Just give the teaser trailer. Stop giving away the whole movie.
Yeah, agreed, agreed. I think there should be a teaser trailer, which is basically the name of the movie. So people are like, "Oh, wow, they made a sequel to that, or that
Hmm.
looks good," and then a one trailer. We don't need an extended
Yeah,
trailer. We don't need three or four trailers because, like you said, it just gives away the entire movie. And then you go into it like, okay, I know this is going to happen. I know that's going to happen. I will
hmm,
say sometimes you get the occasional scene in a trailer that's not in the movie. So it's a scene that wound up
yeah,
on the cutting room floor. So sometimes you find yourself going, wait a minute, I don't remember that scene being in the movie.
yeah.
So there are those instances, but yeah, lately a lot of these trailers they just give away the whole film.
Well, hopefully these trailers don't give away too much, because I would like to find a movie going into late September and early October that can finally scare us.
Yep,
So I
scare us
guess we
already.
will wait and see. Please scare us already. So go ahead and give us a like, a thumbs up, a follow on Instagram or Spotify, and leave a comment down below about what you felt about these movies and what your ratings would be, and any movies that you are looking forward to in the upcoming season of Halloween.
All right,
But thank you for listening, and we hope to catch you guys next week.
bye everyone.